our first webinar in the series coordinated by the Protect Field Committee in an effort to create interesting professional development webinars for the Protect Trainee community. This webinar, entitled LinkedIn Profile and Network Accelerator, will be presented by Dr. Manny Contomanolis, Senior Associate Vice President of Employer Engagement and Career Design at Northeastern University. Dr. Contomanolis is leading an new and evolving organization at Northeastern focused on high-level corporate engagement to offer the full range of university programs and services to meet corporate client and partner needs. He and his team are also continuing to grow and enhance the university's outstanding cooperative education program, innovative and extensive array of experiential learning opportunities, and excellent career services. Thank you, Dr. Contomanolis, and look forward to hear your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. Excellent job. It took me quite a while to learn my last name, and you got it right away. So I'm very impressed. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm fortunate to be here with some of your colleagues in a conference room in Boston, but I know many of you are spread in different locations, so we'll try and do the best we can under those circumstances to give you the information that I hope and believe will be of most value to you, but also try and answer your questions. So it was kind of difficult to know how many of the trainees were active on LinkedIn, how much people knew about LinkedIn versus those that are just intrigued by the idea. So what you'll find is, as I've prepared some of these slides for you and going over some of the content, it kind of varies from a little bit more basic to more advanced, depending on your knowledge and understanding. So I'm kind of taking a little bit of a shot in the dark here to find that kind of happy medium. But again, I will absolutely leave time for questions. And as Kristen said, feel free to shoot her questions during the presentation. And if it's possible, we'll stop and answer them at that moment. So let me start off by saying, why is it so important to be active on LinkedIn? And for some people, this might be a really, really good question. So a couple of caveats. One, I want to be very clear that Northeastern is blessed by having a very diverse and global learner community. So when I talk about LinkedIn, it's very important that you realize that it has a very strong U.S. and Western kind of context. So I want to be sure to kind of frame my comments to understand that LinkedIn is an immensely powerful, I would argue, an essential tool in the U.S. market. That may not be true or as true in every part of the world. So I just kind of want to make sure it's clear here that this is a little bit of a Western bias as we think about this tool and the value. I think it's really important in today's world that people begin to think about how they articulate, how they build, how do they connect their personal brand. Whether it's for the purposes of looking for a job, which of course many people on LinkedIn use the capabilities there to search for a job, but I think arguably more importantly is to help build your individual brand. It's to help the professional world and a community of individuals better understand who you are, what you're interested in doing, what you have accomplished, and how you might connect and collaborate people. So the initial idea behind LinkedIn had nothing whatsoever to do with searching for a job. Having served as a member of the LinkedIn advisory board for their higher education products, it was really kind of interesting to talk with them and see that, now, we never really thought about LinkedIn from the job seeker's perspective. We certainly thought about it for those people that were looking from corporations or individuals to find talented people, but we never really thought about it like, how do we make it LinkedIn easier for the job seeker? And what you see today, if you're active on LinkedIn, is that they've made a number of changes and enhancements to make that easier. So consequently, the bottom line is whether you're looking for a job or whether you are very happy professionally, but you want others to know about your work and your interests in order to collaborate and in order to make connections that will lead to further opportunities or business arrangements or partnerships, or certainly in the higher ed space, the opportunity to exchange views, research activities, and find those synergies which make our work more rewarding, then LinkedIn is the place that you need to be. So let's walk and talk through a little bit of what LinkedIn is all about. And I'm actually using myself as an example of this. Not that it means anything. I have all-star status for my profile in LinkedIn. And quite honestly, that and $2.75 will buy you a Metro card here in Boston. So it's not necessarily saying much, but I thought it would be good to use my profile, which I can talk about a little bit more, to begin to get a feel for LinkedIn, its capabilities, and how you might want to take advantage of them. So what I am looking at right now, you're looking at with me, is my home page. And for those of you that have a LinkedIn profile already, you will recognize something like this, because anytime you click home, it takes you to essentially this view. You'll see across the top that there are other views, your network, the job search, messaging, notifications. We'll talk about those briefly. But I want to give you this idea that this is what you see when you are looking at LinkedIn. This is really focused on you. So here, for example, you'll see your news feed, groups that you might be following or others that you're connected with. Their kind of posts will appear. You can see the first post there is from a friend of mine from my former institution, Rochester Institute of Technology. And because we're connected, and if you look at Maureen Arquette's name there in the post, you will see there's a designation right after her name that says first. Now, I can tell you, Maureen would say, because she's first class all the way, but in this case, what it really means is that she is a first level connection of mine. And what you'll find through LinkedIn is that your connections are often categorized. First level, meaning a direct connection, second and third level connections, which all mean that if you think about the 2 degrees of separation concept, that you're connected either directly or indirectly in some way to many, many people in the LinkedIn community. So you will also see, and it's the necessary price of being on LinkedIn, you'll see some ads there, and that's kind of part of the price that you pay for this particular platform. You do get pushed out with ads and things like that. But let's move through some of the functionality and the features of this, and then talk about how you think about your public profile and how you can leverage the networking capabilities of LinkedIn. So let's move from your home page to your My Network. So if you select the My Network tab, you will get a whole bunch of functionality and a whole bunch of information. Now, because these are screenshots, I can't scroll through here to show you the full extent. But as you can see, I can manage my network. And you see I have a lot of connections, a lot of contacts, not as many people. I'm a little bit more selective about who I follow. But this is a way of keeping track of what you are doing and the extent of your reach and your connections within LinkedIn. You'll also see here that I have invitations. So Deepika is reaching out to me. You can't see their full message, but is looking at, he's working as an account manager. He's looking to make some connections to maybe help his business. Not unusual. I get connections every day from all sorts of different people, and you have the option of accepting those, obviously, or not. You will also have LinkedIn that recommends to you, based on your profile, a whole bunch of other connections you may not have. So as you scroll down this page, which unfortunately I can't do, Because I work at Northeastern, I get recommendations of Northeastern people. Because of other groups and organizations and connections I have, I get further recommendations. So this network is really important because even as you're building your network, LinkedIn helps you by making recommendations to you of individuals that you might want to connect directly with through messaging or follow so that you can see what they have to say. And of course, as we all know, connect with them for other purposes. LinkedIn does have a jobs feature, and honestly, it is very powerful. So for those of you, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, who are in the job search mode, LinkedIn sits on a very robust database of opportunities because organizations will post and list their jobs through LinkedIn. So as you can see here, it also, again, makes recommendations for you. I guess they see that there's vice president in my title, so they give me recommendations about other vice president's jobs as a way of kind of teasing me, I suppose. But the search functionality is really good. You could search by a job title. You can search by a specific company. You could search by location. You can set alerts about the kinds of jobs that you're interested in hearing about. And again, LinkedIn, if you are able to scroll down this page, you will see makes recommendations for you based on the kinds of things that you have been looking for, and again, based on your profile. Messaging is incredibly important within LinkedIn, and that's one of your major connection points. This happens to be my messaging tab, and as you can see, I have an exchange here with someone who wants to come visit me. And I put this up here because if you have a moment to read it, it's a kind of funny exchange and it just shows you what spell check does or doesn't do. But this is my way of keeping track of my various messaging correspondence with people in my network. This is also where I get a message that says, you have a message from someone. So this becomes important because messaging is really important within LinkedIn. There's also a really neat feature called notifications. So you know, like in Facebook, you're reminded of your friend's birthday, so you could send them a birthday greeting, which makes you look very sensitive and thoughtful, and that you've been really thinking about them. Well, the same kind of functionality is available in LinkedIn. So consequently, you could send those same kinds of greetings. You could see, in my case, I follow different groups. The Hellenic American Professionals of the United States and Canada is one, because my background is Greek. So if there are comments or posts from that group, they wind up in my notifications feed. So again, trying to find that right spot between those of you that know LinkedIn well versus those that don't. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of the kinds of things you will find. Now, you can control your privacy, your access, and how the outside world sees you through that Me tab at the top, but we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So, if you think about your purposes, one of the real advantages in LinkedIn is that you can control your privacy settings, who can see things and who can't. So what I just showed you here is if you click on the Me screen, which I've done on the left, and you go under Settings and Privacy, you'll see it as part of the pull-down menu under Account. If you click on that, it will take you to the screen on the right, which says how others see your profile and network information. This is really, really important. So for example, if you decide that you're looking for a job, but you don't necessarily want your existing organization to know it, you want to make sure that those that are connected with with the organization that you're working for don't necessarily see your posts or see your inquiries. So you can control that within LinkedIn. You can determine what people see on your public profile. We'll get to that in a moment. You can see your email address, your connections. You can find out if someone looked at your profile. You can know who that person might be unless they've set their privacy settings so that you don't know who looks at your profile. So this becomes important to become familiar with what you can control or what you want to allow to be open. Because how others see your public profile, how others see your activity becomes really, really important depending on the circumstances that you're in. So let's talk about that public profile. Here now is a view of my public profile. In other words, this is what people see about me if they go into the LinkedIn platform and search. Or, for example, they see me connected with someone else and they want to find out a little bit more about me. We're going to talk about the sections of the profile in a moment, but I want to give you an idea about the kinds of things someone will immediately see about you when they click the public part of your profile. So they're going to see a picture of you, and we'll talk a little bit later about how important your picture and images are. They're going to see what's referred to as your headline. So just below my name, in my case, I opted as my headline just exactly what my title is right now at Northeastern. I'll talk to you in a little bit more about how you may want your headline to read depending on what you're doing and what you're searching for. This about is a little summary about me. So if someone wanted to know a little bit about me and get a flavor for who I am, they would see this about. Now, again, we'll talk about that summary, but basically, this is your opportunity to say what you want to say about yourself. Now, one of the things that I want to remind you about, and we'll summarize it at the end of the session, is LinkedIn. You need to think about LinkedIn as something highly personal. When you write things, you always use the first person. So that's hard for a lot of people because sometimes people think about their LinkedIn profile like a resume, and you want to use that kind of distant third person. That is absolutely not what you do in LinkedIn. So think about LinkedIn as almost like a personal conversation you're having with someone when they look at your profile. This becomes really important and frankly gives you a lot more freedom to express things about you. You can usually, most people do 3 to 5 paragraphs in their about, depending on their circumstances, depending on the story that they want to tell about themselves. In my case, by way of example, I use something very, very brief because I have a number of other things about me that help tell my story. So again, one of the big takeaways is when you think about your LinkedIn profile, when you think about your presence, think about what is it you really want to accomplish. And that becomes really important because it kind of dictates all the various steps and actions you're going to take. So the next sections you'll see in a public profile, in my case, I opted to do this, and it's now become more and more popular as it's become more and more possible. If someone doesn't know me, these happen to be 2 video clips that were accessible on Google for 2 different events where I was interviewed. And when somebody doesn't know you, and maybe they're assessing you as a partner, as a speaker, as a consultant, as just to kind of get to know you better, things like video and examples of your work is a feature that LinkedIn added some number of years ago that not everybody uses. So if you see that little plus sign and the little pencil in the upper right-hand corner of that box, if I were in the edit mode, I can open that up and upload content. This becomes really important, especially if you're in the job search mode, or especially if you're looking to connect with someone and maybe collaborate on something. Maybe you published an article. Maybe you did a PowerPoint presentation on some recent research or work that you're doing. If you're comfortable sharing that, and I would protect it, if you will, when you do, you can put it in your LinkedIn profile. So now someone can find out a lot more about the work that you're doing, the interests that you have, samples of your work, how you present yourself, which, as you know, can be very, very helpful when you're in the job search mode. but also when people are looking for you as potential collaborators. I also get, this is private to me, you couldn't see it, but I get an idea about how many people have viewed my profile, how many people have looked at my posts, how many searches that I appear in when someone was doing a search, let's say, for some feature in LinkedIn. You can also opt to show all your activity. When I did my privacy settings, you will recall when we looked at that, I said, I've got no problem people seeing my activity. So because I chose that, my activity appears here. So it shows like some of my most recent, it tells people how many followers I have. It shows some of the recent things I either posted or commented on. And like CVs and resumes, you're beginning to see it here, but I'll show you more fully. LinkedIn allows you to share your experience. So in that way, in the same way you think about sharing your previous experience on a resume and CV, you can do it in LinkedIn as well. And let me tell you, that becomes really, really, really important when you're in the job search, obviously, right? So the advantage that you have is that you can write this in a way that isn't quite at all like a resume or a CV. Remember, you can use first person. You can say, I'm particularly proud of what I did when I was. And again, just like a resume, you focus on accomplishment, the same thing with your experiences. So you also list your education. And this becomes important because automatically, whatever institutions you went to have institutional pages in LinkedIn. So if you are a graduate of Northeastern, as an example, you immediately become a member of the Northeastern alumni group. And that alumni group is the LinkedIn version. LinkedIn defaults to having you immediately follow the alumni groups of the organization, of the institutions that you graduated from. That becomes really important because for many of us, that's the best place to begin starting your network, especially if you're new to LinkedIn. Because one of the common connections we have are people who attended Northeastern and graduated Northeastern as well. So in this case, I summarized my education so that people will know. I noticed when I was a graduate student, that was a long time ago, at Bowling Green State University, I wanted to highlight some of the things I did as a student, including my internship. So I added that. And again, if you were looking at this, you could click on it and you would see more detail. These are parts, an exploded version of my skills, and that's a very, very powerful part of LinkedIn. You can add skills, and then people can endorse you for those skills. So as you can see, I have 99, and that, by the way, is how LinkedIn kind of caps numbers. If you notice on my public profile where it said connections, it said 500 plus. They don't bother saying how many connections you have. Same thing with endorsements on skills. See by career counseling, it has 99 plus. Higher ed, 99 plus. It means you have more than that, but they never bother to keep count or report on it. So this is a way where you could talk about your skills and have other people say, yep, I agree with Manny. He has skills in these particular areas, career counseling, higher education, leadership development, are some of those. And I've been endorsed, in this case, by colleagues at Northeastern. So if you think about somebody looking at your public profile, they'll look at those skills and they say, well, you got a lot of endorsements, but you also got endorsements from the people that you're working with at the same organization. Okay, in this case, it happens to be Northeastern, but it could be any employer, any organization. And then you could even have more detailed information about those skills. Now, why does this become important? Because, as I said to you earlier, while LinkedIn did not necessarily care about the job seeker, they absolutely cared about people looking to find good talent on LinkedIn. So there is a tool on LinkedIn that's called LinkedIn Recruiter. And hiring organizations almost all have a number of those LinkedIn recruiter seat licenses. They cost approximately $10,000 a year. Believe me, many corporations can easily afford to pay for that. And they provide that to recruiters and HR people because LinkedIn has become one of the most critical ways that employers can find people with specific skills and talent. So using the recruiter search capability, you can use all sorts of criteria and come up with all sorts of candidates based on all of these different kinds of fields. So think about, in the same way you might think about a resume or a CV as being word searchable, the same is true of your LinkedIn profile. So the more powerful, relevant words you use about not only what you can do, in this case, skills, for example, but also in what you're interested in, all form triggers to help people find you. Beyond that, on my profile, you can also add recommendations. So these are people who have recommended me. And one of the things that you'll find in LinkedIn protocol is people will often, especially people that work with you, if they're looking for a job, they're looking for a promotion, or they want to have some more visibility so that they'll be invited as a speaker, or maybe get selected to attend a conference, recommendations can be a powerful way. These are people saying nice things about you, right? What you want to make sure, however, is when you request someone to do a recommendation for you in LinkedIn, that you help give them an idea about, well, this is really what I'd like you to emphasize. If you believe something about me, this is really what I'm kind of hoping that you can emphasize. So in the same way you ask people to write a letter of recommendation for you, perhaps, or act as a reference, the more you tell them about what you really want to push, the better job that they're able to do. The same thing with LinkedIn recommendations. But again, this is a way of making you more real. So it's not just me telling my story, but it's others telling my story for me. Okay? Here, again, each of these features, as I said earlier, you can turn on or turn off. If you don't really have a lot to say about something, or if you don't have endorsements quite yet, just don't make it part of your public profile. As you do, you can then add that to your profile. Believe me, anytime you log in, you can update constantly. It's one of the nice features about LinkedIn, and it happens instantaneously. So in this case, because I had other things, I'm a member of different organizations, I have several publications, I have 2 books, for example. I kind of highlight those in here. And you can actually, in this case, if you see this most recent book that I worked on with my colleague, Winning the War for College Talent, you can embed a link in there. So if you were to click on that C publication, it would actually take you to Amazon, where you could purchase a copy of the book if you want. Right? So again, those are some of the neat features. And in my case, because that's part of the brand of what I know and what I'm involved about, what I write about, what I speak about, it's important to do. In that same way, if you've been part of a published research effort, right, where you might be an author on a journal article, this is a good place to show that and to give people those references so that they can get right to that article if they're intrigued to learn more about you or the work that you were doing. Okay? And then lastly, if you were to click See All at the bottom of this, you would see a long list of people I follow, groups I'm engaged with. And this also becomes important because, that, again, that reflects like who you are. And it also helps people connect with you. So again, in a nutshell, I know for some of you this may be basic, for others of you it may not be. But think about your public profile as the story you're telling people in the professional community. Understand you have a great deal of control over that profile. So I'm showing you mine because I've kind of basically picked all various areas. But you can pick and choose to highlight those that present you in the best possible way and continue to evolve it as you grow and develop professionally. So I referenced earlier your headline, what appears below your name on the public profile of your LinkedIn I just want to show you some other ones that were not based on what the person is doing. Because if I was in a job search mode, I probably wouldn't use my title. Or if my main business, my main use of LinkedIn was to connect with people for business purposes, consulting, or providing a particular service, I wouldn't necessarily put that on the owner of an advertising firm. I would talk instead about providing creative services in a particular industry space. So that someone would say, oh, okay, I don't know exactly what you do, but that's what you're about. And I'd like to talk with you and find out more about it. So I gave you a couple of people within my orbit because of the different kind of headlines they use. So Lindsay Pollock in the lower left does a lot of speaking, a lot of writing, and basically the way she presents herself is a multi-generational work expert. And New York Times contributor and a best-selling author, and she has her podcast, and she's a keynote speaker. So she put it all there. So in a nutshell, I would now know, oh, Lindsay Pollock, wow, she's doing all these things. Maybe I want to think about her as being a speaker. Okay. In the same way that Richard Orby Austin does a lot of stuff in diversity and inclusion. He basically does, he's a consultant. So he wants to make sure that you get that right away from his headline. So what do you want to say in that headline? What you do want to write about is what do you do? For example, in my case, I put my title, right? Why you do it, what you want to do, or what impact you have or can have. So think about where you're at, okay, and how you want to translate that in your headline. Now, you never want to put on your headline, seeking a job seeker, not good. So skip over all that. You don't want to talk about things that are irrelevant. So you might love dogs. I happen to be a dog lover. I'm not putting that in my head. I might say something in my summary just to make who I am a little bit more real. But unless I own a dog walking business, or I'm a veterinarian, or my business is saving rescue dogs, I'm not going to put dog lover in my headline. Okay? And very important, you don't want to put anything that misrepresents who you are or that might be perceived by someone as a lie. Okay, so you want to be sensitive about that. Like if you aspire to something, say aspire instead of I am. Now, people ask me this all the time in terms of the headline summary and what I want to put in my summary. So I put together some of the key talking points in here, and for those that this presentation will be available, a live link to a whole section we have on the website of our department about LinkedIn, about writing a headline. I just want to kind of give you a flavor. But in the same way we talked about headlines, when you talk about your summary, remember that next section? I had that one paragraph. Some of the things that you can talk about in your summary are, what's your dream? What is it you really want to do? What are those things that you're really passionate about? What strengths or talents do you bring to a particular role? The summary is a good place to put that, okay? Because again, you're telling your story. So in that case, even if you're looking for a job or you're in a job search, it's okay to make that part of your summary. You just don't want that to be the headline about who you might be, okay? So this is information that you can get to later on. We talk a lot about your image on LinkedIn. I just want to say a quick word. This is not the time to skim on your photo. For example, in our career fairs, we have a LinkedIn photo booth where we take headshots, right? It's very, very important that you have a professional image of yourself. And that's how people see you on LinkedIn. So you want to crop something. It's definitely not what you might put on Facebook. What you want to do is the professional me is really what you want to project in that photo. So be careful about what I call party shots. Let's get a picture of me at this party, so if I could just crop it a little bit, it'll fit. You don't want that. You want someone to say, yes, I can see this person in front of clients or representing my company or organization. Okay? So people ask me a lot about who I should be trying to connect with and why. So in the simplest terms, If you're a job seeker, you want to be connecting with people who are doing what you want to do, right? If you are interested in a particular company or a particular area of the country, you want to make people in those companies or in those industries or in those geographic areas the people that you can connect with. And believe it or not, on LinkedIn, yes, you can connect with people that make hiring decisions. HR managers, recruiters, they all have LinkedIn profiles as well. So, but people ask me a lot about, how do I send a message? I don't know anybody. So how do I take that first message? So what I always tell people is the following. If you're going to reach out to someone who you don't know, it's what we refer to as a kind of cold or even slightly warm connection. Maybe they're connected to someone else. Maybe you don't know them, but you have a little bit of an angle to approach them. Try and think about them as, how can you make it easy for them to respond to you, okay? So in other words, how do you want to give them a light lift? So one of the best things you can do is, people love to tell stories about themselves. So when people ask for advice, that's a little bit easier, okay? So I'll give you an example of a kind of nice generic message that you can send when you don't know someone. What you want to avoid doing are things like, hey, I would love to come to your office and sit down and talk with you. That's a little creepy, especially if I don't know you. Too much stalking there. And you definitely don't want to say, hey, look, I'm going to send you, can I send you my resume? I really love, can you pass it along to someone? I'm looking for a job. You want to avoid that. Because that's like, whoa, I don't even know you. And now you're asking me to speak up for you. And I'm not going to do that. That's a guaranteed way not to get a response. So here's a very simple example of a person who writes, Jane, I see you're an alumna of Northeastern University. So she found someone in this case who was connected through Northeastern. So immediately, they made the alumni connection, right? I see that you're alumni. I'm graduating from Northeastern as well. And notice you're working as an engineer at Wayfair. By the way, there's a lot, even despite the layoffs, there's a lot of Northeastern people working at Wayfair in a lot of different roles. I hope to follow that career path, and I'm greatly intrigued by the idea of being an engineer in an e-sales organization. Might you have 20 minutes to chat at some point about how you got so far in your career? Now, if I'm a person that says, oh, this person is graduating from Northeastern. I'm a Northeastern alumna. They're going to be a Northeastern alumna or an alumnus. Okay, I'm going to be a little bit more sensitive to that. Oh, you want to talk about how I became an engineer and what advice I might give you? Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And the way this message said, you have 20 minutes to chat at some point. Notice, it didn't say, I'll meet you at this particular place, I'll come to your office, come to campus. You have 20 minutes to chat. So hopefully, when the response is, what might work best for you? Is it something that we can do a coffee? Is it something that we can just chat over the phone? I recommend a brief phone call first, right? It's kind of like dating. You got to feel it out, right? So this is an example, I think, of a good, easy lift message. If I get this, I'll be much more likely to respond, rather than this. Hi, Jane. I see you work at Wayfair. I'm studying engineering and looking for a job. Very motivated to work hard and really want to be a leader. Can you help me get a job at Wayfair? Or put me in touch with someone who can? Really appreciate it. I can tell you, if I get a message like that, I'm like, no. I'm not going to do it, okay? So again, these are simple and maybe extreme examples, but think about your own situations and how you view some of that. Okay, so let me wrap up so that we can get to some questions with what I call this kind of tip summary. And I apologize here because I don't know what that little arrow is in there that may be blocking that. So very quickly, decide. The first thing I told you is decide what you're going to use LinkedIn for. If you're going to be a job seeker, you want to think about your privacy settings, you want to think about your connections, you want to think about your messaging, who you're following from that perspective. If really what you want to do, you're very happy where you are, but you like to make other kinds of connections professionally, and you like people to know about you, slightly different in terms of what you might make public, in terms of the groups you might follow, in terms of the messaging you might do. whatever you do, same thing with resume, same thing with interview, same thing with your LinkedIn profile. Focus. Ask yourself, is every part of my profile telling the story I want to be told? So how you summarize your prior experiences, how you complete your summary, your headline, how you look at communicating the groups that you're involved in, all a part of telling your story. So what you really want to make sure that you do is think about that and always look at your profile and say, is this me? Is this communicating what I want to communicate about me? I said this to you earlier, but I want to reemphasize it again. Make it personal. Pretend you're telling a story to someone, like you were in front of them. Have your LinkedIn profile speak to somebody that way, because that's how they're reading it. It makes it more real. Told you a little bit about messaging, right? Messaging is powerful, but you want to do it the right way. You be thoughtful about who you message, how you message them. And you might have some questions about this, and we'll try and get to them. I think it's always good to ask for recommendations regularly. Not everybody does them, and not everybody does them in time. But if you work with someone on a project and you work together and they know and can say something good about you, shoot them a message and say, would you be willing to write a recommendation for me in LinkedIn? And I would happily do the same for you. Be visual. In today's world, it's all about visual, right? Instagram is popular because it's visual. People go to Facebook not because they want to read long posts, but because they want to see images or get links to video. Same sort of thing in LinkedIn. You could say much more with an image, a picture, a video than you're ever going to say in some kind of summary state. So just be sensitive. You can do that in LinkedIn and YouTube. Bless you. Make your opinions known. One of the most powerful things you can do in LinkedIn is become an author. In your profile, it will say, write a post, where you kind of type in a post, or it will say, write an article. If you're doing work and you want people to know your ideas, your interests, your take on things, you can comment on other people's posts. And by the way, that's a good job seeker strategy. You follow companies you're interested in. You follow people who are doing the work, like maybe you're interested in research and of a particular kind of research. You want to find those researchers and follow them. See what they're saying. See what they recommend for people to read. And then use that publishing ability. You write a short little paper, or you offer a position statement, or you encourage people to comment on what you just wrote, or you talk about a research project and how you're going through it as a way of getting other people interested and aware of what you're doing. It's very powerful. And if any of you blog, you can link your blog to your LinkedIn profile. So if you're already doing blogging, nice and easy. You just connect it to your LinkedIn profile, and people can get to your blog that way. It's really important to follow individuals and companies, to comment on posts, to forward or share other people's comments, and also join groups. That builds your visibility. So you can lurk quite a bit on LinkedIn. You can just read other people's comments, you can share them, but what you really want to do is be strategic about it. As I said earlier, if there was another research center, let's say, that was doing something similar to Protect, or you can envision yourself working in another institution that's doing something similar, follow those institutions. Follow those research centers on LinkedIn. Follow their researchers. Comment. Look at what they're saying and what they're doing, because that creates your network. And then once you've done that for a little while, send a message. Say, I would love to connect with you. I've been reading your posts and your comments. Love to have the opportunity to exchange views with you at some point. People are like, oh, great, there's another potential colleague. And lastly, LinkedIn is a place to be positive, okay? Everybody wants to see in your profile and in your comments and in your writing somebody who's thoughtful, who's enthusiastic, who's positive. So this is not the place to bitch about stuff. Or at least I would not recommend that you do that. There's lots of other places here you can do that. You want to think about professionally, you want to project that perspective of being a can-do professional who's really able to contribute either individually, independently, part of a team, or certainly part of another organization. That's where that opportunity presents itself. Okay? So I'm sorry we got started just a tad bit late, and I tried to cover a lot of ground in a short period of time. So hopefully we can entertain a couple of questions before we have to adjourn. So Kristen, can we turn it over to you? If you've got something.
That's great. Thank you so much, Manny. I especially love this LinkedIn tip summary page. I think it gives you a one-shot up to see everything. A couple of questions that I have, and while I'm asking, feel free, trainees externally, if you have something you want to chat to me, to do that, and we'll also see if there are any questions in the room with Manny. But Manny, if people are which most of the people that we have as Protect trainees are going to be in the job search arena, like you hit on, how much time do you suggest they spend on keeping their profile up to date? And what are some of the easier things that you mentioned that they should maybe be doing on a weekly or biweekly basis? I mean, how often? You mentioned seeking recommendations regularly, like when you finish a project with someone, but what are some of the low-hanging fruit as they just start getting into it that they maybe should start off with?
That's a great question, and I would say that just like any job search, you need to invest the time. So for me, LinkedIn should be at least a weekly check-in for you. One of the nice things with your profile is you can update it, and it updates immediately in real time in LinkedIn. So that gives you the opportunity to really change things on the fly whenever you want. It's not like you have to update a CV or resume and then kind of redistribute it. Your profile is out there, so what you really want to do is constantly look at it, constantly update it, and you can do that easily enough. So for me, especially if you're in a job-seeking mode, you should set aside some time. I kind of like the idea of regularly scheduled time. Think about like I'm taking my own self-paced, self-for-credit, so you can guarantee you get an A, job search course. And it meets every Thursday afternoon from 1 to 2:30. I think that's the kind of discipline I would recommend. So you could set aside that time regularly and say, okay, I'm really now going to invest. Let me check my profile. Is there something else I need to add or change? How am I following different activities? What kind of jobs might I be researching, through the jobs search feature? Which jobs should I apply to? What people or what groups do I want to follow? So I think a good starting off point is setting aside that weekly time. And then just like anything else, what you'll find is you're checking it every day, or twice a day, or 3 times a day. And I know it sounds kind of crazy, but it's like anything else. It just kind of becomes part of the way you think about any social platform, right? There are people who are constantly checking their Insta accounts, right? Or texting or checking Facebook. LinkedIn is just something that it maybe has a lot more impact for you personally and professionally for the investment in time.
Yeah, okay. No, that makes sense. And looking at it more like this is you, putting your brand out there. And if people aren't that comfortable with the word brand, it's putting your professional image out there. It's, and I think that's harder perhaps in the research community where they may not be as used to it yet. One of the questions from a trainee was, if you're not sure on your career direction, how should you word a summary? For example, if you're not sure what career sector you want to go in or what type of research, et cetera. Do you have any advice there?
Yeah, one, you don't have to commit to any particular pathway. And one of the cool things about the summary is, let's say you have interest in 3 different areas. Say it. No one says you have to be committed to any one thing. And I think certainly in the professional community, everyone understands that, because most seasoned professionals have been interested in different things or have held different jobs or have gone through different progressions. So you don't have to worry about that. This is not an interview where someone is asking you to choose between certain roles. What they really want to do is get to know who you are. And as human beings, and especially as professionals, we often have diverse interests and different areas of responsibility that are kind of more opportunistic. If this kind of research assignment comes along, hey, I'm completely down with that. But I would also be completely down if that kind of research assignment comes along. So I don't think anyone is really forced or committed in that direction. Again, the idea of the summary is Help me understand more about you, your interests, emphasis plural, you know, your skills, your experiences as they relate to those interests.
Okay, great. Any questions in the room with you guys there, Laura or Manny?
Yes, we do have a question, and I'll repeat it just to make sure everyone can hear it. Just in case.
Right. So hi, this is Virginia. I was wondering, how does Indeed, doing it like an Indeed search and requesting to be notified of certain types of jobs, tie in with LinkedIn?
That's a great question. Hopefully everyone heard that. It's what is the tie-in between job boards like Indeed or Monster or a million of them, frankly, with regard to LinkedIn? What I think you will find is that a lot of jobs you see on Indeed, you'll also see within the LinkedIn. So one of the issues is that they're different platforms doing different things, but employers are often posting everywhere. So consequently, I would not be surprised if you see the same job, you know, that pops up in a LinkedIn search, it would also pop up in an Indeed search. But because they treat the candidate in two different ways, you kind of follow what's going on in two different ways, right? They're not seamlessly integrated in like a meta platform. So that in LinkedIn, for example, regardless of any other job platforms you're in, that it kind of all rolls up into LinkedIn. It doesn't. What you will find, though, as a job seeker is people will ask you, or you should encourage them to see your LinkedIn profile. So one of the things we didn't get a chance to talk to, it's a little bit of an advanced feature in LinkedIn, but you can personalize your LinkedIn URL. So when you create a LinkedIn profile, you automatically get a URL that looks like totally bizarre. It's like www.com.linkedin/numbers alphanumeric combination that doesn't mean anything. But you can actually go in and edit that. So you can go in and create, you still have to keep the LinkedIn dash part of the URL, but you can use your name. You can, I think mine has Career Guru as my LinkedIn, you know, address. But it makes a lot of sense to put that on resumes, CVs, in applications, because again, this is in my mind, a very powerful way to tell your story. So if you feel good about your LinkedIn public profile, by all means, make it easy for people to see you and learn about you that way.
Manny, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we have one more question. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you recommend putting titles after the person's name in the profile, like the PhD or something like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have a degree, sure. Again, if I'm looking for a research job and I have my degree, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to make sure everybody knows it, because they're going to ask me that question. Go ahead.
Okay, great. And I guess, sorry, Cheyenne has a question in the room, so we'll let you get that last question. I just wanted to say thank you one more time. This is great.
So my question was that, okay, so imagine you message somebody and you went through the structure and they got back to you, okay, so they're willing to share their 20 minutes to talk to you. Okay, then what?
Well, again, in this case, in the example I gave you, you certainly don't want to message someone unless, as I said, it's part of a strategy. So in this case, in the example I gave you, right, there's someone messaging probably because she wants to work at Wayfair, right? She's not asking for it up front. I probably know that too, right? But you know what? Maybe there's an opportunity, but this 20 minutes may give me a chance to get to know you better, right? So remember, in the message or the sample one, she said, like to learn more about how you got to this point in your career. So if I'm going to have that 20-minute conversation, as an example, I'm going to say, I really appreciate that you were able to give me this 20 minutes. And I have many more questions that we could possibly do, but let me ask you what most intrigued me and caused me to reach out to you. And that is I'm thinking about all these different engineering fields and knowing what I know about Wayfair. What does an engineer do at Wayfair? You know, what are the kinds of things that attracted you to Wayfair? And what are the kinds of recommendations you might have about someone who wants to work at Wayfair? Notice, I haven't asked for a job, no insider stuff. I just really want to know that, are you happy there? What are you doing? Which is important information. But then secondly, it's like, so how did it work for you? So depending on what the answers to those questions, now I have my strategy evolving. And if that person likes me or feels connected with me, they'll say, hey, you know, we have a job fair coming up, or we do a lot of open houses over at the Prudential Center. Why don't you stop by and, you know, let me know? Or if you really think you do want to apply, shoot me an email message and I'll let the, you know, the talent team know that you're applying, right? So the idea is you can have some purpose for that messaging. It could be unrelated to looking for a job. You may just want to say, I'd love to learn more about the research that you're doing because it overlaps some of the work that we're doing here, or some of the work that I'm interested in doing. And I'm really looking for advice about where's the right PhD program to consider, let's say, or what might be organizations that I should get involved in to help me be more immersed in this. Those are all questions that somebody goes, oh, yeah, I'm happy to help you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Kristen.
Thank you so much, Manny. Thank you to all the Protect trainees for joining, and we'll be following up with this in future Protect meetings and sessions, because I think this is great stuff for us to be building on.
Sure, and I'm happy, again, if you want to do a follow-up on this as you get people kind of a little bit more into it and want to do a deeper dive, don't hesitate to let me know.
That would be great. Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye-bye, everybody. Good luck.